Tats and Talks podcast.
What's the crack, everybody? Welcome to the Ken Green Tats and Talks podcast with me, your host, Ken. I just wanted to make a show that went over sort of the stuff that inspires me, the anime that I'm watching, the Warhammer that I'm painting, and the tattoos and tattoo artists that I admire and I really enjoy doing. If you feel like this is something you'd be interested in, give us a cheeky follow and delve into the weirdness of my mind. Okay, so today's episode I did say was going to be tattoo critiques. Probably it's more going to explain my tattoo journey to where I am now, rather than I probably will sort of critique bits and pieces and stuff like that, but I'll explain sort of how I've got to the point where I'm at now and where I feel I'm going from here. So what we have to do is go back in time, back to 2019 when I did my very first anime piece. And it was actually this Neon Genesis piece. Oh no, Neon Genesis? Evangelon. Sorry, my brain's mush. And it was super fun to do. It was my first time having to go at it. I just did it. I didn't think about it too much, but I had loads of fun doing it. It actually then inspired me to do like a competition to try and do more. Excuse me. They were kind of Dragon Ball Z designs that I did. They were super fun, although I drew them not really having any idea about tattooing them, if you know what I mean. So I had all these cool effects and all this cool kind of stuff that until I actually sat down to tattoo them, I didn't think about. And back then, I probably wasn't as skilled as I probably am now. But I copied them as best I could. I've got a couple of them up here. Um, they they were they were enjoyable to do. I just kind of put in all this kind of stuff like I had like glowy kind of hair. I had OSLs. I had like sort of the stipple shading kind of stuff. I just basically threw it all in. Um, OSLs, sorry, for anyone that doesn't know, it's called object source lighting. So it's when you have, it's kind of like you see here, there's like red lighting and blue lighting. It's for a secondary source of light that gives an edge sort of coloring. You get a lot of them. In fact, I've put them in a lot of my color tattoos. There's a couple popping up here. Like it's just a cool way to give it a bit more shape, a bit more realism, to have like a wee reflection light on it, kind of thing. But yeah, so doing those Dragon Ball ones, it was great. And I think a couple of months later, I had someone book in for my first custom Dragon Ball piece, which I tried to do something kind of fancy with it then. I had him like half transforming. It was Gogeta, I think it is. Um, and I've kind of done the bottom half really bright. Thinking about it now, longevity of that probably isn't going to be great. I'd be interested to see what that looks like now. Um, but it's all stuff that back then I didn't understand fully, and nobody in the shop I was working in Skimworks at the time. Nobody in the shop was doing that kind of thing. There was Chris Hill, Arms Like Wings. I think he had left by that point. I can't remember. But he would do more. He would do more like nerdy kind of stuff, like it would be more Star Wars and Transformers. You know, the proper 80s kind of stuff. This was anime, and all the anime tattoos at the time it was all bright colors and stuff like that. So there was no one in the shop sort of bounce ideas off regarding that kind of stuff. Um, but my main sort of thing was like Instagram, like anything I would see on Instagram, because I think about that time was when they really started like, blowing up on Instagram, and I started to get influenced an awful lot by what other people were doing. I noticed more and more people doing that under stipple kind of stuff, which then I kind of took because back in 29 I wasn't getting many, so I think there was a good few months before I got another kind of anime-ish one, which I think was the Spyro. And I didn't even put any object lighting, and the glow effect isn't really a glow effect. It's just kind of, there's light coming off him. I probably could have done more with that, reflecting off Spyro. But I did do a lot of the stipple and the shading and the face and the wing and stuff like that. But then again, there was another couple of months before I did another one, or my next one. And if you're not tattooing something regularly, you do tend to sort of, well, I tend to forget what I did before. So the next one I did, it was this Demon Slayer piece, and it was, I didn't use any of the stipple kind of stuff. I think I left too much skin tone, probably didn't do enough reflection. I kind of, I got I got carried away with the flame effect, the fire blood effect in this one. I was like, yeah, we'll do this, and we'll have the whole bottom half orange kind of thing. So I got carried away in that. Then by the time I did my next one, I think it was like the next year. I just went straight back to the old OSL kind of stuff. Yeah, so this one here, it's the Magikarp Sushi. Because I drawn a whole load of Flash to try and get more anime ones at the time. So this was May 2021. Now, you've got to also remember COVID happened during this, so my memory I would have completely forgot how to do a lot of stuff by this stage, simply because they were so long out, like just not tattooing. Although weirdly enough, I did do a lot of digital art, and that helped me with my OSL kind of stuff going forward. I think one of the next ones that I really tried to push myself with the OSL was this uh, Charizard and Blue Eyes. So I remembered again about the stipple effect. Um, so I did an underpainting of that. I don't think it was very successful in this one, but I still did it. And then with the colors on top, I had the lightning reflecting on like Charizard's knee and shoulder and hand and stuff, and then I had the flame reflecting on Blue Eyes' neck and wing, and because he was metal, so it would reflect more. I really enjoyed how I got that to look because I blended the color into the other color. But again, this was all stuff that I'm literally just copying off people. You know, here's the next one again. Was a good few months later, in the year. I tried to do like again a double source. This Bakugo piece. So he obviously is using his explosion at the front, and it's reflecting back between the fingers, which I thought it did okay with. And then slightly on the legs, I probably should have brightened it a bit more in the dark pants to give you that sort of like it's really really bright. And then I did like a blue background on the hair, like as there's a light backlight on him kind of thing, which I thought worked because it did blend that into his hair color. So I did kind of like that one, but I probably could have pushed the reflection in the trousers and stuff like that on that one. Um, then again, there was a lot of period of like trying different things and messing around. Sometimes I ended up going back to just basically a hard like secondary light source and basic shading. Sometimes I worked in like a proper under painting again. I think I stopped doing it with a liner, so it wasn't scratchy. I tried to do it smooth, like in this one, and then tried to work it in. Then it was in, let me see, because I've got these saved, you see. So March 2022, I'd just come across an artist called Callum. His Instagram is CPAZ. Um, he plays around with a lot of light sources. So there's parts where he doesn't even line, and that's like the brightest bit. So I had a guy come in to get a Squirtle. Now this thing, I'm pretty sure it's only like that big. It's only a couple of inches tall, maximum. But I spent hours on this, getting it right. Took the time. I really sort of pushed it. Tried to get the shine in the right place, the reflections on the shell, on the chest, on the nose. Like The blue had like a secondary, like I really played around with that and I loved it. And I think it turned out really, really well. Um, and that's what I kind of concentrated on from then on. Like Canon inspired me to do sort of play around with the light sources a bit more. So I did this one of Hitachi where there's this whole purple or pink light coming from one side, which I thought worked really well. And then I started concentrating on that and that alone. And I ended up doing a couple of like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that any of these tattoos are bad or wrong or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that I got inspired by stuff I seen on Instagram without taking into consideration how I work as an artist. All my art, my own drawings and stuff like that, I start with the line work, obviously. Then I do a base shadow, and then I apply the color on top of the shadow. You know what I mean? And then at the very end, I do the highlights and the flares and all that kind of stuff. It's actually not how I tattoo, which, well, it's not how I tattooed then. I do it now, but I'll get on to that now. It's mad how much Instagram and what you see on Instagram and you see stuff doing really well, how it influences you. Um, I then it was at that stage I think I actually turned off the likes counter on my Instagram, or sometime around here because like so basically if I'm on Instagram I can't see how many things something's got liked. I can see my own stuff obviously, but not anyone else's, and it stops me going, oh, that's doing really well. I should copy something out of that. Um, but yeah, so then I was still at Skimworks doing all of these ones, and then I moved to Skull and Bones where I was able to focus more on the anime. I was able to set my own prices. I was able to set my own designs. And I did kind of go back to the old way. So I did have a bit of shading, a bit of OSL. I did a couple of really sort of ones like here and here, like where it mixes all of them. You know, it has the lighting effect, it has the OSL effect, it has the shading, the stipple shading for the darker bits. I started doing that, but then I still didn't find it represented me. This is when I really started to try and think about how I would do it. So I started dabbling in different ways of doing even the shading, like having it getting lighter towards the like this Pokemon piece. You sort of see now there's a wee bit of reflection from Charizard's Fire Tail here, but generally you'll see in the shadow parts it gets lighter as if it's reflecting the surface, but I'd done away with the OSL kind of stuff. And I continued doing that for a while, and I thought I was doing well. And again, I'm not saying that any of my tattoos, I'm not bumming on any of my tattoos or anything that a client has got out there. At the time, that tattoo was as good as I could do because I am trying to get better and better. It wasn't until um, me and Mark McCulloch, Mark M. Tats, um, did a tattoo swap. He did a drowsy for me in his style, and I did a Sandshrew dressed up as someone. I forgot what who. Sandshrew dressed up as Red Rat. That's who it was. And I was like, I'm putting this in another tattoo artist. You know, it has to be next level. So I was really into looking at certain I sort of looked at a lot of artists that did Pokemon and or anime and stuff, and started noticing they were putting colors into their shadows. Now, admittedly, at the time, I think I'd seen a few that had done like a version of purple, not understanding why they put it there. I'll get onto that in a minute, but it was kind of so I was like, oh, I'll put a bit like a really dark purple in the shading. I'll give a bit of differentiation. And again, it worked. I did it a lot. There was even the other time I did more of like a reddy purple, but I kept it in the purple range because again, that's what I've seen. So that's what I did. So I did a couple, and you'll see purple, 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 and then the wee reddy purple, wee reddy purple. Um, but I didn't do it for every tattoo because I didn't think it would work with every tattoo. There were some that it worked with, and I was like, yep, that's cool. Then there was others like this one. I really love how this one turned out. Goku wouldn't have suited the purple, and that's me subconsciously knowing not to do it. I did a couple more purple, purple, purple. This was all before going to Anime Inc. in America. I spoke about this before in one of my other videos. And I noticed that I wasn't necessarily like I thought I was a pretty good anime tattooer. It wasn't until I seen stuff and then I went to a couple of seminars and there was one that Matsi and Isnard they did about color theory, and I can't believe I never put two and two together. Like I know color theory, I know how it works, and they explained it a bit more. The reason why the ones I looked at had purple in it was because the design itself was very warm. So the purple was there to cool it down. If your tattoo is going to be too red looking, you put a bit of blue or a cooler tone to cool it down, and vice versa. If it's very cool, put a bit of red or the like to warm it up. And then I was like, I can't believe I never put two and two together. That's the reason why there was purple in those other ones. So all the ones that worked with, like whatever purple I used, actually did make sense. Like there was, um, it was a very light one, so I would be able to cool it down, or a very warm one. And I was able to, I put it in the right places in the tattoos I did it, but I didn't do it for the right reasons. So when I came back, I had there was a lot of continuations and a lot of sort of stuff, and I was sitting playing with how to do things and stuff. So when the first proper opportunity to do it came up, it was this Vegeta and Goku piece. Um, I did break it down. I think I've got photos of. So I did full underpainting, like a full black and like a nearly a full sort of black shading to this. I then did the color, and then in because there was going to be obviously Vegeta's top was blue, Goku's top was blue. He was using a blue aura. I cooled it down by actually putting some magenta into the shadows and into the colors. And I think it works quite well. It's the same with this Naruto piece. My God, for some reason when I talk to the camera, my brain turns to mush. I can't remember who people are. Um, Kakashi. There we go. Like I love Kakashi. Like, never mind. But this same with this Kakashi piece, right? So it was going to be very, very cold, the greens and the blues. So I put a bit of magenta and blended the magenta into the dark blue. Um, and you even did it in the green. It's not so obvious in the green because he's got this big light source, and it's fine. That it's grand. It works well. But it's more you can see him in his Shushano, or the wee armor thing. And you can see it in there. And I think it works really, really well in that. Then when I started doing this January offer for this year, that's when I really started to try and hone into this sort of whole idea of hot and cold and how it would work. So I tried a couple of tattoos. Now, I don't have healed photos of these, and I will try and get them. And I'll maybe do like a wee healed episode, like fresh and healed, the sort of show the comparison. But I did a Natsu and a Momo, Momo Ayase from Dandadan. With Natsu, he's got pink hair, and you'll see it here. He's got pink hair and he's got a big fireball. Fireballs are generally red, right? Or on that spectrum, very warm. So I decided to cool it down. And rather than doing an underpainting of black, this was around the time that, as I was saying the other time, like Sam and Deanna were really sort of inspiring me, but they were doing color underpaintings. So when they put other colors on top, it would change them. So that's what I did with this one. I did a blue underpainting with this one, and then colored over the top of it as if it was the black, colored over the top of that with the colors. that I was going to like the skin and the pink and stuff like that. And I think it looks really cool. Like there's definitely like a cooler look to the shadows and stuff like that. It sort of it does give you that nice, excuse me, contrast between the hot hand and then there's like this really lovely cool. I think I've even got a side by side. I think I've got a picture of it with just the shadow and the blue bits, so you can see where I put them in these. And then with the Momo one, she was kind of she was going to be pink, so she was quite warm, um, but not too warm. So I went for a purple. Now this one I decided to do. I've done a black underpainting in the really dark bits, and then the bits that wouldn't be as dark, I did a purple underpainting. I went over, and again, I think it works really well with all the colors that were in her, stuff like that. I think it popped off quite well. Um, I then did a couple of Warhammer ones that didn't necessarily work as well with the hot and cold, but I was able to do a lot more OSLE kind of stuff, and the stipple shading really worked with them, and I thought that worked. It wasn't until the last sort of couple of weeks, and I found sort of this when I was designing stuff about they have so you put your reflection color in the shadow, which is what we're doing. We're doing the reflection. Um, I was trying to make the reflection the same as the background. The background would sort of contrast, you know. So with Momo, it was a purple background, so purple. And then with Natsu, it was a blue background, so blue. You know, that was I was trying to get it to match, just so it made sense. And then just as the shadow hits the lighter bit, is when you increase the saturation of the next color. Um, so I did that with these next two. Um, and it's Ken from Dandadan and Princess Mononoke, either whichever way they are. And you'll see, so you can see the colors in it, you can see the colors in the shadows in this one, you can see where it cools or warms the whole thing up and down. You know what I mean? Um, I love these two. These two are one of my favorites. You also see the saturation thing I was talking, like I think in Kentaro's hand, it goes from the shadow and then there's like this really, really vividy pink before it gets to the light. Same with the fingers and then around the eyes. And then you'll see a slightly simpler version of that on Princess Mononoke, where I really went, it was like a proper pink, almost line between the light and the shadow. But my favorite bit of the Mononoke is because she's in the forest, her shadow consists of a lot of green. And I don't know why. I can't. I just remember when I was designing it and putting those colors in, look, and then when I was tattooing, it just seemed to click in this tattoo. It just seemed to sort of go, oh yeah, you would have them not necessarily as the full shadow, but it would be more in the deepest part of the shadow, which is usually the center of the shadow. You know what I mean? So I started doing that in her, and I I I think it looks the green works really well with everything else that's in her. The same with the Kentaro, like turbo granny form, and he looks class. That the hand, just the way the hand, I think the hand color for me is great, and then you've got that lovely sort of blue cooling down because it's in the background, in the hair and everything. I just I love it. Um, One that everyone seems to be really liking is this other one from Dan to Dan. It was more. I actually thought it would be too cool. I hadn't learned the skin tone thing by this stage, but it seemed it would be too cool. So I actually went with um a red sort of underpainting for this one, and it seems to have really sort of warmed the whole top up. Like the skin seems slightly warmer, and even though it's got that sort of deathly kind of color to it, it's still warm. It's not like it doesn't look like a zombie, basically. Um, so yeah, so like I know I know I'm still technically copying but I'm doing it in my own way. Um, a lot of those older tattoos, I was literally just I seen something on tattoo. And was, oh, that's cool. I'll copy that on my tattoo, and it didn't always work. It wasn't always. It didn't like it was. It was almost jarring on the design. It was just like, does that need to be there? It probably didn't need to be there, but I was just throwing it in because that's what everyone else was doing. You probably, I would say, if you're trying to find your own style, and if you don't know this already, like I'm preaching to the choir, if you've got your own sort of jam, but if you're trying to find your own style, staying away from Instagram is probably the best thing. Use it for work. Use it like I've reduced my stuff now. I post 3 times a week, and maybe throw the odd story out if I see the odd thing, but I don't really go on Instagram, and I'm sorry if people have noticed I don't like their stuff as much. I try to stay away from it. I'm trying not to be influenced by what is out there. I'm trying to find my own direction with what I do. Um, Now, obviously, it doesn't work with everyone. Like some of the stuff I've designed and started before I found this, so I can't add it in afterwards. So there is, I'll still be doing stuff in the old way, but it's only because it was designed in the old way, and we've just got to finish it that way. But I'm trying to do it more and more. Like even this Sonic and the Sonic piece and Princess Mononoke piece again from the weekend. That'll probably be up on my Instagram like tomorrow. Um, you'll see that. Like I didn't. It was more an OSL on this one I used, but there's still you can see the stipple and the solid colors, and it helps break the shadow up. And then in the Sonic and Shadow one, Sonic has the red background, hot and cold, and I sort of blended some red into the shadows for him, and then Shadow has the blue background because he's got a lot of red. Yes, a lot of dark, but a lot of red in him. And I blended some blue into his shadows. So trying to do it in the same, and I think it turned out really well. So I now understand why there's colors in the shadows, and I am trying to mold the way I'm working to be a bit more my own, a bit more like if you see it in your street, like I said in the last episode, like if you see it in the street or no, a couple of episodes ago, you go, oh, that's Ken stuff. Rather than like there's been a few people that sort of went, oh, I found you because I went into a coffee shop and someone asked me, was that Ken's tattoo? It just they seen a generic anime tattoo and thought it was me because they knew of me, which it's good because they knew of me, but it's a wee bit of like, oh, just because it was an anime, they assume it was me because they knew it was rather than going, oh, that's a Ken Green tattoo. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. This one isn't necessarily as much of a critique per se. It's more, this is kind of what I'm doing. This is kind of where I'm going. I'm looking more at digital art and how it's applied rather than tattoos and how they're applied. I think I'm at the stage now where I understand how to apply a tattoo. I just need to now do it in a way that people will recognize it's mine, um, and go, oh, it's a Ken Green tattoo, um, and sort of build my reputation that way. Um, and again, I will say this again, I am not in any way dissing any of my tattoos that are out there. Um, I At the time I did them, I was 100% happy with them. But maybe, sorry, 90%. I'm always going to find things that are wrong with tattoos, no matter how. I watched the other guy, even the one the other day. I was like, what do I do for this? Um, like I said, you will need to be a good tattoo artist. You will need to always critique your work, or you will never advance. You will never go forward. And I think, like, I'm not saying it's about like you can obviously get to a point and you're good and you're solid and you're getting the work, then fine, crack on, McDuff. You're paying your bills, you're doing what you like. You don't have to think about it too much. You're fine. it kind of all depends on what you want to do for yourself. Like I'm 42. I don't have long left in the tattoo industry before I'm either A, too sore to do it, or B, too old to be cool enough to be doing anime tattoos on all these 18-year-olds and stuff that are watching it now. You know what I mean? Unless I build a name for myself. If I have a name, then smashing. It's like, oh, I have to go get one from Ken Green. Same way I go, I have to get one from Simon K. Bell. You know, it's like, I have no idea what age he is or even what he looks like, but I just love his stuff and I want to go over and get one by him. You know, is it you build your name and I'll be able to tattoo for longer. You know what I mean? Um, so this is just a video, just basically going through where I think I am now, where I am hoping to go in the future, where everything becomes a bit more cohesive with how I do things. And I'm kind of hoping that you are enjoying the tattoos. They are getting a lot more interaction on the Instagram, but again, the algorithm is a fickle beast. I don't know how many of my actual customers are seeing it or people in the near vicinity. There could be about 100 people from America that see it, and they're hardly going to come over, are they? You know what I mean? So it's just things like that. I'm not overly critiquing. This one probably is going to be quite short. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, if you guys have any sort of comments or words of advice or anything like that, if tattoo artist client, like a client, what is it you'd like to see in a tattoo? Tattoo artists, what do you suggest I could tweak and add and play around with? And yeah, that'll be much appreciated. Just fire it down in the comments, and I'd love you for it. I'm going to leave you now. This is quite a short one compared to the last couple of weeks. I'm also a wee bit ill, so if I sound a bit, I apologize. Next week's one is a Warhammer one, so it's only for Warhammer peeps, but it's going to be going over the painting side and actually that weird connection I was talking about that has weirdly happened and played in to how I paint these wee guys. So I'll see you next week. Pew pew. Love yous.